Hi, let's get started. I want to do a review on chapter 25 out of our community book. It is dealing with poverty, homelessness, teen pregnancy, and mental illness. It's a lot of different things in this one small chapter. And I know as you're doing different things and assignments that I've given you, it's been kind of difficult. Make sure you read through those things, read your rationales, and start to kind of put it together. A lot of the things that you see with this is applying what you learn, but you have to look in it at a clinical piece. We're looking at the community or the population, but at a clinical, as a nurse, what am I doing? How am I doing it? And what am I doing? So let's get started on this. Here we go. Poverty. There's a lot to do with poverty. And one thing that we have to understand, we're not trying to culturally pick on anyone or look, but the evidence out there is showing and leading us to this. It's something that we need to address as folks, and we need to look at why and what we can do to make things better. So evidence has shown that African Americans and Latinos are higher risk for poverty. And this also includes educational levels. So if we're looking at the African American or Black population and Latinos, we need to look at their educational levels. If they're not getting the education that they need, it's also going to keep continuing to feed into this poverty setting. And we'll talk a little more about education as we go on. But just so you know that these two demographics are definitely at a high risk, and we see them. They're at the highest risk for poverty in our country. Food, shelter, and clothing are issues with the poverty and homelessness. If you don't, it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One of the things that we learn in nursing school that will follow you all of your nursing life is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so if we don't have food and clothing, we can't move up that pyramid that Maslow has. So it's so important that you notice that the food, shelter, and clothing are issues with the poverty and homelessness. So if that's the case, if you're looking at this, how are they ever going to even get onto the higher levels of Maslow's? If we can ever get to that self-actualization where we're supposed to be, they can't get beyond the first two levels at the bottom of the pyramid, because those are basic needs, and that they're not able to meet their basic needs and have a healthy lifestyle. There's different kinds of poverty, and I just wanted to kind of hit the definitions. I think it's kind of important to understand. There's persistent poverty, and that's where they remain poor. I really wrote that poorly. Sorry, I was typing quickly. They remaining poor. Sorry, I apologize for that. But they remain poor for long periods of time. It's persistent. It's not something that's resolved. It's not like they lost their job and for a moment in time, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months or something, that they struggled to have those basic levels. And then once they were able to get another job, they were able to move back up in that hierarchy. This persistence is it's for years and years and time after time, for long periods of time, they remain poor. Neighborhood poverty refers to the geographical area, defined areas that are high poverty areas. So it's looked at, it's how much is the cost of housing or living in that area, and things like that. On the lower socioeconomic, that is your neighborhood poverty. We're looking at areas that don't have the things that create or have, it's hard for me to get this out, I'm sorry. It's geographical when it says neighborhood poverty. So if you're going into somewhere that has geographical poverty, that means a area is poor. What do they have? One of the things that I've noticed that when you go into a lower socioeconomic area, you don't have, and I explain this in class, you're not going to see, and they all make fun of me because I mispronounced Lululemon because I said Lululemon because I think that sounds fancier. But anyway, you don't have that store sitting in a lower socioeconomic area. That is a higher end active clothing line and store. So it's things like that. What do you have? What do you see? One of the greatest things about community and population health is we do a window survey, and you get to go into a population and look and see and really observe your surroundings and what's there and why it's there and how it all plays into what's going on with the healthcare of the area. Multi-generational poverty is poverty passed down through the generation. Just so you know, African Americans, Latinos, and indigenous people are the highest risk for multi-generational poverty, from great-great-grandma to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation, to the child. We are seeing poverty. And these are the three demographics that we see that in. One of the things as a nurse and as a nursing student, I want to say to you, no matter what, if they've been out starving and eating out of trash cans, always be respectful to all people, period. Now, one of the biggest things I always like to say to my students is be a duck and let it roll off your back. Sometimes people can be very ugly. Sometimes people can say very mean things to you or lash out at you. And there might be a reason, because I know there's times that I've lashed out at someone and it was because I was very angry or upset about something else. It's displaced anger. And so sometimes that can happen. So you have to be the professional and the bigger person and understand. Until you walk in a mile in someone else's shoes to understand what they're going through, you're not going to understand it. Until you're really starved, you're not going to understand starving. You're not going to understand that whole food insecurity, homelessness. You're not going to understand it unless you've ever had to sleep outside in the cold or in not knowing, you know, where you're going to go next or what you're going to do. It's a scary, scary situation for people. And sometimes it can be ugly. And if that's, you know, rude or yell out at you or lash out at you, but remember this, you are the bigger person, you are there to help them. And that isn't about you. It's the situation they're in. So always be respectful to all people, period. Poverty, again, I'm going to continue. Elderly are increasing as a high poverty demographic. We're looking at anybody 65 and older. Once they retire out or they can't work anymore, they are suffering from this. With the cost of living of what it is, people are really having to make decisions on what they eat and where they live. In the book that we use, I know other people are watching this, but in the book that we use, it does explain to how the elderly finding housing that's reasonable in cost, food cost, any kind of life expenses, they are going up. And if you don't have it, we're finding that elderly people are truly struggling. And because of that, they're not able to get the medicines they need or the healthcare that they need. And so they're becoming sicker. Something just to kind of note. If you cannot work, you cannot eat. If you've not ever been told that by your grandmother, I'm going to tell it to you, because I've heard this over the years growing up. If you don't work, you don't eat. That's how it works. And that's how we talk about it in the South. You don't work, you don't eat. Well, guess what? If you don't have an education, if you don't have a high school diploma, if you don't have a house with an address, if you don't have a cell phone or some way to communicate, if you can't get an ID or a driver's license, things like that, you can't get a job. And if you can't make money, you can't seem to pay for a home or food or anything else. So there's a lot to that. It's true, you need a job to be able to work. So if I were looking at people, those who cannot work would be the ones that are high at risk to be homeless or hungry or anything like that. You know, people aren't just eating out of trash cans to eat out of trash cans. And I can honestly say where I used to live, not where I am now. I live downtown in a large city, and I did witness this. And it is just heartbreaking to see someone pulling food out of a trash can to eat because they're hungry, especially in our country. It just kills me. The poor must visit the ER, expensive medical care because of lack of care. The reason why the poor come to the ER is because they need to be seen. Two things happen. One, they don't have doctors established. So to get a doctor visit, they come to the ER. Secondly, if they don't have the means to take care of themselves by eating or taking medicines or seeing physicians when needed, then their health declines and they have to go into an ER to be seen. It's a good thing to understand. They don't just come because they want to, they come because they kind of have to. They don't have choices. Education is the key to get higher paid jobs and defeat poverty. I know we say this, that doesn't mean you have to have a master's or doctorate degree to defeat poverty, but having a high school diploma is almost absolutely necessary anymore, or, you know, to get an equivalency to get a job where you can make money to feed yourself or feed your children or whatever. So education is the key. So anybody that's in that lower socioeconomic poverty stricken areas, we need to focus on providing education or making sure if they're younger and homeless children that they are plugged in so that they can continue in their educational process and get through, high school. And if they want the opportunity to go on, go on. In North Carolina, I do know that the community college level, they do a lot. They do a lot to help with education and get people educated. And I think it's absolutely fabulous for our state to do that. Remember that approximately $26,000 income is needed to meet basic health requirements for a family of 4. Now, I'm just going to be very honest with you. I can't even imagine, because that is very little money, but that is what our country says. Approximately $26,000 is what a family of 4 needs, is the base bottom line approximate, a little bit more than that and change, that we need to maintain a healthy requirements for a family of 4 to live. That means to be able to provide shelter, to provide food, clothing, those things. $26,000 for 4. Just think about it. Nursing, always some nursing little things that I want you to remember is if you have someone that's homeless that comes in to the clinic, to the ER, if they're admitted, always provide them with soap and water and an opportunity to clean themselves up. They've not had it. Where are you going to shower or bathe if you're homeless, if you're living in your car, you're living in a tent, or you're living on a park bench? You don't have that opportunity, and they need to be clean to heal. We know that skin is the largest organ and skin integrity is so important. There's things that happen. I mean, lice, fleas, skin breakdown, they itch, just basic dirt that we collect on our bodies. It needs to be cleaned, especially if they have a wound or they're injured or anything and we're trying to get them better. We need to have them clean themselves up. So always offer soap and water an opportunity to clean up. If the client is homeless, or if they don't have running water, we live in a lower socioeconomic area up in the mountains. We have the very well off, which everybody's aware of. And then we have some very poor people that live out in the southern states of the mountains, not just North Carolina, but Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia. And when you look at those areas, a lot of people up don't have running water. They're still using different things to provide water in their homes. They use outhouses still and stuff like that. You'd be amazed if you ever do home health nursing and have to go work on someone or change a dressing, and they don't have running water to wash their hands, and stuff like that. You have to think outside of your box as a nurse. You have to start to think about what you can do. But one thing you want to make sure is if they come to you into a clinical setting, that you provide the soap and water and opportunity of towels and stuff. If they can shower, let them shower. They can bathe, let them bathe, but if not, at least let them wash up in a sink with soap and water and towels, especially warm water. Another nursing thing I want you to understand and know, and please add to your little notes. I always say, put this a pearl from me. Never include the term crazy in any communication, with the client, with the family, or with other healthcare workers. You don't need to say, if someone asks you if they're crazy or if their loved one is crazy, you don't say, well, let's let the doctor tell you if they're crazy or not. That is not a good response. That is not a healthy, open communication, therapeutic communicative response. Another thing I want you to know is anxiety disorders are the #1 cause of disabilities in our country. If those are the #1 cause of disabilities in our country, let's think about this pandemic that we're coming out of, or we're still in, however you want to look at it. It caused a lot of anxiety disorders, didn't it? I mean, children stayed home. We're seeing this now. We're seeing the after effects of it. We all were scared. We all were fearful of getting sick and dying. And we closed things down. We kept people in. And I'll be honest with you, even today, I'm not big on getting in big groups of people anymore with things that are going on in our country. So it is an anxiety, number one cause of anxiety, or number one cause of disabilities are anxiety disorders. Good to know. Food insecurities, increase in absences of work and school, and depression are present in the homeless. If you are homeless, one of the things that we see as a school nurse is we can start to see increase in school absences. If that's the case, we need to start to ask why. Why are you missing school? If they're living in a car with their mother and they just can't get cleaned up, or they can't wake up, or whatever's going on, the problem is bigger than them getting to school. That needs to be found out, number one, and number two, addressed and help this family get to where they need so that they can. School is a safe zone usually for students. It's also a place that students find food. And food insecurities are huge in homeless. It means they don't know when the next meal is going to come. They don't have the money to buy food. They're not really sure. And it becomes something that's scary. Are we going to starve? Are we starving? Children go to school and they can get meals. And I've noticed that a student shared with me in class the other day, and I want to share it for anybody that watches the video. It's kind of interesting. Here in North Carolina, they're offering this mid-breakfast at this county where she's from, and her brother's still in school. And she said, yeah, they can go get breakfast in the morning, but if they don't get that, they have a mid-morning breakfast break. And they provide breakfast like a muffin or a bagel or something like that mid-morning for any student. And that's one of the things that we're seeing too, is we're starting to break away from, if you can't afford it, we'll give you free, but if you can't afford it, you pay. And that creates this divisive kind of school environment where people can be picked on and things like that. So I'm really excited that now they're just offering to all kids, which is kind of nice. Depression is something that we see for many reasons. Many things happen, but if you are homeless, depression is something that will probably most likely take place. It's a depressing time. It isn't your best if you cannot afford the basic Maslow hierarchy of needs. Pregnancy is one of the things that we're talking about in chapter 25. One thing that you need to know is all pregnant women need prenatal care. We need to take prenatal vitamins. We need to look at our nutritional intake. We need to have rest. We need to have the things that we need. And those are very important. So the lack of prenatal care can cause a lot of issues for females. Nutrition, I just said that there's an increase. There's a different nutritional need once you are pregnant and are carrying a baby. Water and soap to remain clean for them also. We need to make sure if they're homeless, they're at a high risk. They're at a high risk for nutritional issues. They're at a high risk for safety issues. They're at a high risk for cleanliness and the issues that come with that. So always to think soap and water need to be provided for them to help them remain clean and have a safe environment, a clean environment for them to be protected as they're carrying this baby. Everyone needs to learn about preventative methods and contraceptives. Anyone sexually active is at risk for an unexpected pregnancy. Never allow anyone, a parent, to tell you, if you're a school nurse or if you're working in the community as a nurse trying to help prevent teenage pregnancies, that my child's not going to get pregnant, because as soon as they say that is when their child will get pregnant. You need to be aware and alert that everybody can, and you need to be able to express that to even those parents who think their child can't. Sometimes children don't think they can. And that's where education comes in for everyone. Children need to be educated, especially those who are at risk, or anyone that can have a baby. So whatever age level that is, once the menstrual cycle starts for a female, they are able to get pregnant. So we need to start to think about that and how we at that age bracket can educate as nurses to help them prevent, hopefully, a teenage pregnancy. We also need to provide for these people the resources that are out there. There's resources for if they're going to be sexually active. There's ways to obtain contraceptives. Abortion clinics are included in this, even though I know that's a very high controversial conversation now within our society. But they're still present in certain states, and it is something there that needs to be educated on, or at least provided resources. Also, health departments where they can plug in to get the nutritional needs, if they need food stamps, things like that, so that they can, food banks, so that they can get what they need. And what I want you to realize that all teenage pregnancies, no matter where they are on the demographics or where they are on the poverty lines, if they're poor, rich, whatever, all teenage pregnancies are high risk pregnancies, all teenage pregnancies. One of the things as a nurse we need to do with teenage pregnancies too is always assess the mother's knowledge of growth and development of her child. Once the child is born, they come into the clinics, if they're back in schools, if we're a school nurse, if we're a clinic nurse, if we're in a pediatric office, whatever, we want to assess the mother's knowledge of growth and development of her child, of the baby. Because if she understands where the child needs to be, they need to be saying this many words, they need to be doing these kind of movements, they should be holding their bottle, they should be off of a bottle and drinking out of a cup. All of these, can they skip, can they jump, as they're growing, their whole developmental process, we need them to understand, because then they are able to provide the care that is needed for this child to grow healthy and develop healthy, and be able to move forward in life. So that is something as a nurse we always want to do. Teenage pregnant females don't get care due to fear of parental acceptance. Kids don't want to go tell anybody. They don't want to tell their moms and dads that they're pregnant. They're scared. They're scared that their parents are going to kick them out. They're scared that they're going to get yelled at. They're scared they're going to be disowned. They're scared of all of the unknowns. So parental acceptance is so important to them that they don't tell their parents. And because of that, they try to hide the pregnancy, so they don't go get the care that they need. They don't go get the prenatal care. They're scared of the gynecological exams. If you've never had to go and put your feet in stirrups and have those type of exams, it's scary. It's daunting to a teenager, especially the younger they are. And we see, unfortunately, young girls as young as 9 years of age that are pregnant at times, not here in North Carolina, or not just here in North Carolina, across our country. It happens. So it depends on what's going on, but they are scared of that exam. So because of that, they don't go to the doctor. They don't want that prenatal care out of their fear. And then the fear of the pregnancy itself, the unknown of being pregnant. I'm just going to ignore it and it's going to go away. No, I have that as my second little bullet there. If you ignore it, it will not go away. If you're pregnant and you try to hide it and ignore it and think things are just going to be okay, I don't need to worry about it. That's not going to happen. It's coming, but that is part of the reason why young girls that are pregnant don't seek out care or help. Remember the connection of the mother-baby is healthy. Mother and baby, once baby is born, they should be making that. If you've taken as nursing students any of your mother-baby OB clinics and classes, then you learn that once the baby is born, that it's so important that we have that skin contact, and we make, if the mother is looking and assessing her baby, making sure 10 fingers, 10 toes, but also as the baby's growing, if they come in for a visit, a pediatric visit, and you're the nurse in the clinic, are they making eye contact with the baby? Are they engaging with the child? Are they talking, singing, cuddling, holding? These are all good signs of parenting, that they're making the connection to be the parent to this child. It's healthy. So if I'm going to teach stuff, what do I want to teach? You need to cuddle them, you need to sing to them, you need to hug them, you need to read to them. All of the things that you need to be that loving parent is what a child needs to grow. The elderly. Now we're going to go to the other gamut, because the elderly are one of the ones, back, if you look at poverty, they're at a high risk to poverty. We need to offer support and resources to adult children taking care of their elder parents. It is difficult to take care of someone who first of all took care of you, number one, and then has been taking care of themselves all of their lives, their adult lives. Now, all of a sudden, they're needing help, they're needing care. It becomes very frustrating, not only for the elderly parent, but for the caregiver, the child, the adult child. So we need to provide resources. We need to provide support for them. It's a struggle. and we need to be out there. You're looking at things like care, just basic care. Can they get in and out of their shower? Can they drive still? We're looking at making food. Can they make their food anymore? What are they eating? You know, I know of an example of a parent who wants to eat, you know, like they'll make this situation, they buy a large quantity of something like a baked chickens or something like that, and they'll sit in the fridge and they'll just eat every day off of it. Well, after so many days, it can go bad. And we know as we age, unfortunately, everything decreases, right? So sometimes she can't see that well to see if there's mold on it. Sometimes she can't taste that well to know if it's gone bad, you know, or smell. It all has decreased. And so there's issues there. So I only put the one bullet there because I wanted to expound on that. There's so much when it goes to caring for your elderly parent. It's a struggle. And as a nurse out there, as a community population health nurse, as anybody in the clinics, you know, out there in doctors' offices, in the hospitals, ERs, whatever you're doing, when you're addressing these caregivers, please offer them support and resources because they're struggling and it's difficult. The fight is on. You know, do we put mom in a home or dad in a home for care because we can't care and they're not caring for themselves? Are they forgetting and they're leaving the stove on and different things out there? And so we need to be able to plug everyone into help and also into resources and support and put it all together so we can connect that and make it an easier transition. Mental health, primary prevention. I want you to look in parentheses. It's straight out of the book. In primary, we're preventing disability. In secondary, we're limiting disability. And in tertiary, we're reducing disability. So primary, we want to educate populations about mental health. We want to teach stress reduction because we know stress can cause mental health issues. Support and provide prenatal education, provide support to caregivers. So that is our preventing disability. That's our primary prevention. Secondary prevention is limiting disability. So we're going to limit this. We want to conduct screenings so that we can identify, is there issues out there? That's why we conduct screenings. If we're doing a screening of, say, teenage males and we want to see, you know, are they developing their psyche? Are they dealing with coping mechanisms and anger issues? Then we can conduct a screening in a high school of this specific age. And what are we doing? We're trying to identify issues so that then we can address those issues and hopefully fix anything that's going on, or at least help and alter or change to the betterment of our community and society. Provide mental health interventions after stressful events. This is in the secondary, we're limiting disability. So if we have stressful events going on, we need to provide mental health interventions. We see it. If something really bad happens in a school to the children, we need to provide them with the counselors and stuff to meet grief counselors if there's been a killing or shooting, or if they've had a loss of a teacher or loved ones. We need to provide this for them so that we can hopefully relieve or have them deal with the stress in a healthy manner. Tertiary is to reduce disability. So we're going to provide health promotion activities to people that already have serious persistent mental health issues or mental illness. We're going to promote support group participation for those with mental health disabilities. And we're going to advocate for rehabilitation and recovery services. So we're going to really try to reduce disabilities by actually engaging with people that already have mental illness and what can we do, and then advocating for rehab and recovery services for them. And then also, you know, support group participation for those with mental health disabilities. We want to provide areas for them to come together, be able to help each other through these processes. So that's your primary, secondary, and tertiary. And anytime we're looking into community and population health, we need to look at primary, secondary, and tertiary. So for my students, make sure you look at that. The other thing I want to bring up with mental health is I want you to understand that suicide is the second leading cause of people of the ages of 10 to 24 years of age. Men take their lives approximately 4 times more than women. So we see higher suicides in males than females. And when we're dealing with males with suicide, they usually take their lives more violently. Firearms are the most common for men to take their lives, so they kill themselves with guns. And poisoning for women, that's where we see overdoses and things like that. It's a less violent way. It doesn't mean that men won't overdose and females won't shoot themselves. It just means that in statistics, firearms are the most common in poisoning for women. Firearms for men, poisoning for women. Stress contributes to adult mental health issues. So we are seeing different things for children, but for adults, it's stress, because we have the stress of the unknown, the instabilities. You know, at that point, you have to, as an adult, provide your shelter, provide your food, provide all your basic needs, and then live and have a life. So there are a lot of stressful events, and sometimes people can lose jobs, or they don't make enough, or they do have a family coming, and the different things that can cause stress. Sometimes it's just the job itself is so stressful. So just know, and it connects to your 27 chapter of violence, that stress and mental illness also works with violence. You know, it can lead to, and we need to make sure we understand that. That's why when I talked about violence in the other chapter, and we talked about money, you know, sometimes the money thing, if it's a stressful situation, it's a high stress level for both people involved in the household, dealing with lack of money, then it can lead to a violent event, an abusive situation. So things connect, and I want you to connect them as you think about things. But stress contributes to adult mental health issues, just so you know. That kind of wraps up the chapter. And I know that there's different things that when you're doing some of the NCLEX questions, when you're looking at things, read everything with rationale, but just know that, that there is so many things that happen in our society that it all plays in. But we look at demographics, we look at research, we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we start to place all of it and figure out what, as a healthcare system, as a community population health nurse, how can we address the person, how we can address the neighborhood or the society, that, you know, where we are within a smaller group family, and then how can we do it as a whole in our whole society, in our world. So I hope that this review helps you guys. Listen, go back through, read the chapter, pull more information out into your notes, and I think you'll do fine. If you have any questions, please reach out to me if you're my student. And for all the rest of you who are watching, I wish you the best. Have a great day.